Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. My name is Evelyn Stefani, Channel Manager for our Translation and Localization team here at LanguageLine, and I'm truly delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, The Road to 2026, Redefining Tech and Infrastructure for Language Access. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. Throughout the presentation, you can submit your questions for our speakers by typing them in the question panel. To access this panel, click on the questions icon at the bottom of your screen. We'll address all of your questions, or as many as we can, at the end of this presentation. You can also share comments or your insights using the chat feature, also at the bottom of your screen. While you're not going to be able to see each other's messages, moderators and panelists will be able to reply to you as soon as we can. Elita Hill, our American Sign Language interpreter, will be providing interpretation for the entire session, and you can also enable closed captioning at any time by clicking the CC icon located at the bottom of your right screen, which also enables translation if you need it. And one last quick note, at the end of today's webinar, a brief survey will appear on your screen. We truly appreciate your feedback. It also helps us continue to improve and ensure these sessions are valuable to you. Thank you in advance for taking a moment to share your thoughts, and let's get started. Over the past year, we've seen an incredible transformation across our industry, from the rise of Gen I and agentic workflows to integration of real-time translations, automated quality assurance, and intelligent orchestration across systems. 2025 has been a year of bold experimentation, smarter automations, and meaningful progress towards a more connected future. Today, we'll look back at the innovations that shaped the past year and look ahead for what's next. From intelligent infrastructures to human-in-the-loop design, we'll explore how LanguageLine and Blackbird.io are redefining what's possible when technology and people work seamlessly together. Whether you're here to learn, to be inspired, or start a new conversation, we hope you will come away from this session with a fresh perspective of where the industry is heading and how we can lead the way together. Before we dive in, I have to say this, and I'm so excited for today's panel. This group is not only brilliant and insightful, but they're also incredibly engaging and fun to watch. I know this is going to be a very memorable conversation that brings both expertise and energy to the topic. After hearing from our panelists, we'll open up for discussions. So just remember, send as many questions as you have. Without further ado, let's get to meet our panelists. Dan Milczarski, Vice President of Solutions at Blackbird.io. Dan is a solutions-focused leader with over 20 years of experience in the technology industry. He's focused on language business-to-business products and solutions and helps business solve their problems with powerful automation and AI. Erin Harchuck, Solutions Architect Manager at LanguageLine Solutions, brings over 15 years of experience in the language service industry, and she has built her career on curiosity, collaboration, and commitment to excellence, helping clients achieve their goals while driving innovation and operational success. And Tom Shaw. Tom is an accomplished translation solutions director here at LanguageLine with deep expertise across the language industry. With extensive experience in pre-sales, account management, and service delivery, he specializes in designing and implementing scalable language technology solutions that optimize workflow and drive operational excellence. Thank you all for being here today. Erin, take it away.
Thank you, Evelyn, for that introduction. Between all of us, we've spent decades making global communications work, and maybe the last 18 months trying to make sense of how AI wants to help. But before I jump in, a little bit about us. We are LanguageLine Solutions, a global leader in on-demand interpretation and translation and localization services, connecting people across languages 24/7, 365, and we have been for over 40 years. Our goal is to help create understanding anytime, anywhere. Our workflows blend expert linguists with AI-driven and custom solutions for precision, speed, and cost efficiency. From documents, websites, software, multimedia, to global testing and training programs, LanguageLine ensures that every message resonates clearly across cultures and platforms. So let's take a dive into what 2025 taught us so far and where the road to 2026 is really headed. We're going to launch a poll here in just a minute. And while we're doing that, I'm going to move on to 2025, our year in review. So we're about a decade into this AI journey, but if 2024 was the year of experimentation and hype, or the art of possibility, 2025 is the year of early stage adoption and us starting to ask, how do we do this right? We saw LLMs move from being a side experiment to being embedded across localization pipelines, quality assurance, even in interpretation. We continue to have conversations about AI ethics and regulations. We're seeing a massive transformation in what linguists or language experts are being asked to do. Quite a few advancements have made AI tools more affordable, but sustainability is still a large concern. It's a massive amount of electricity, cooling, they can be expensive to run. It just doesn't quite scale. And out of all of this innovation, we've surfaced a new theme of purpose, purposeful AI. I think we're learning that just because we can doesn't mean that we should. AI can do almost anything with language, except maybe apologize convincingly, a skill that I'd say maybe not all of us humans have quite mastered. But in healthcare, legal, manufacturing, getting it mostly right isn't good enough. We have an emotional intelligence or EQ limitation. Systems can simulate some level of awareness, the appearance of understanding. We see hallucinations. So systems that will confidently assert that something that isn't true is true. And in 2025, we're starting to mitigate this with RAG or retrieval augmented generation. So feeding it more data or information to build context, mixture of experts, we're changing our models. But essentially, there remains a limitation on ethics or judgment, right versus wrong. Gets very fuzzy when we talk about anything in subjectivity. So this year, we're learning to use AI purposefully, not pervasively. And now our responsibility lies in weighing the risk versus the return on investment. So we're deciding, where does AI add value and where does human judgment or expertise need to take the lead? And in a recent recap from Danny, our global head of AI at Teleperformance, from the World Summit on AI, he says we're shifting from what's possible to what's responsible. And I'd add to that we're also shifting technology-wise from Gen AI to agentic AI. And just to level set, generative AI is what we would call reactive. It waits for you to ask. Agentic AI would then be proactive, and it's trying to act on your behalf. So we can think of Gen AI as your teenager. You tell it what to do, and it mostly listens. It's chatbots, it's image generators, it's these reactive systems that wait for you to prompt, and then their job is to generate based on their training. They're sort of pattern matching machines, as it were. Agentic AI is sort of your ambitious coworker who's already scheduled the meeting before you agreed that it was needed. So agentic systems can plan and decide, they can learn. They're essentially breaking down complex localization tasks into a sequence of smaller reasoned steps. So it starts with a prompt, but then it'll achieve your goal through a series of actions, perceptions, decisions, executions, and it'll repeat that cycle. Both have a very common foundation in large language models. And I think the future maybe is an intelligent collaboration between the two. So when to explore something via generation, when to commit to it via generative. And to me, this is where orchestration enters the chat.
Erin, let's share a little bit of the poll's results. So, question was, how has your organization approach to localization changed in the past year? And here are the results for it. We've seen 10%. We've integrated, sorry, had a pop up over here. We've integrated AI into most of our workflows. 38% we're testing hybrid, so human plus AI models. 56% we're still primarily human driven, and 9% we're reevaluating our entire localization model. What do you think about that? Are you surprised by these results?
Yeah, I mean it plays really well into what we were talking about. 2025, we got really hyped and we were really excited. We're doing some testing, but we're still primarily human oriented. We still need to figure out how we're going to implement it, where we're going to implement it. And I think we're going to see that curve arch really quickly because we have done a lot of discovery and we can sort of see where the balance works really well in some of our places, but I think we still have a lot of testing to do.
Perfect. Ready to move forward?
Absolutely. Yep. And I'll pass it on to Dan for the next slide.
Thanks, Erin. Um, this visual really captures the six foundational pillars of Blackbird, each one designed to make global content operations faster, smarter, and more connected. We start with connectivity. Blackbird acts as a content iPaaS or an integration platform as a service. It connects all the systems involved in a multilingual content operations, such as a content management system, a translation management system, AI tools, and everything in between. So it's the layer that unifies your entire tech stack. Next up is interoperability. It ensures the data and that the workflows can move between the systems, the teams, partners, without any friction, and it adapts dynamically to each environment. The main core aspect of Blackbird is the orchestration. It's at the center of it all. This allows complex workflows to be visualized, automated, and executed consistently across tools and teams. Next are checkpoints. And when we talk about one of the challenges with AI is ensuring that humans are in the loop. Well, checkpoints gives you that power. You can pause, you can validate, you can continue your workflows. It ensures that automation doesn't have to sacrifice quality or compliance. It actually allows you to let your humans live in what I call their natural habitats. They live in their systems, they make decisions within those systems, and then triggers additional actions within your orchestrated workflows. Of course, a lot of what Erin talked about, a lot of what the poll talked about was AI. And one of the biggest challenges is how do you operationalize that? How do you actually put your thoughts, your AI thoughts into production? How do you make sure that they're compliant and consistent? And this is where Blackbird kind of steps in, allowing you to access LLMs and RAG and tap into agents. This is how we infuse intelligence into content operations. So we can enrich content, we can help with translation quality checks or quality evaluations. Contextual reasoning. This really does allow you and empower you to operationalize your AI usage. And the last bit that I want to talk about, and we're kind of fast forwarding a little bit into the future. We'll save this more for the end of the conversation, but is Black Lake, and that's our data and data lakehouse foundation. I think that this is going to be a huge part of what we're talking about in 2026. It stores your content with context, and you can use it as learning data. You can use it to augment your future content operations so they are smarter over time. And we'll talk a little bit more about Black Lake as we talk about 2026. But yeah, so these six pillars really are what makes Blackbird the orchestration hub for modern AI-driven content operations. Back to you, Erin. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, let's take a look at how we've taken this multilingual content operation and placed it into an intelligent infrastructure with orchestration. And as Dan alluded to, the secret sauce isn't in one tool or one integration. It's really how these tools talk to each other. Orchestration saves time. It gives us the best possible outcome. And the coolest part, there are no individual touch points. So we're not sharing data, passing files, re-entering information. Everything is managed for us seamlessly between the tools and the apps. And this LanguageLine Blackbird case study highlights the orchestration between CMS, TMS, NMT, GPT, LLMs, and LQA, all for real-time translation. So it's all of our really fun 3-letter acronyms. Our challenge in this particular situation is that legacy systems are siloed. And while some systems have steps that have AI workflow automation, so you can sort of think of an if-then rule, they really improve only a piece of your workflow, not the whole thing. And if we take a look at our workflow chart on this next page, we'll see an illustration of this. So AI orchestration is intelligent. It connects the dots. It listens, decides, routes content through the right systems automatically. So our workflow no longer is a linear path. It becomes a series of decision-making points, sort of like the Choose Your Own Adventure books for anybody who remembers those. Orchestration takes all of the AI tools, our apps, our data, our models, our TMS, our workflow, and now everything in the tech stack is working together. So it takes integration essentially to the next level. Each tool is no longer just performing its own task. It's actually collaborating with other tools to determine what the best action is. And then it takes that action. So it's kind of like a multilingual traffic controller minus the coffee addiction. Our takeaway here, ultimately, connectors, APIs, orchestration layers are how we get from chaos to clarity. And another great case study in our partnership with Blackbird is how we're leveraging this orchestration layer to accomplish operational efficiency. So this is a perfect example of how we've taken something that used to be highly manual, quotes, and turned it into a fully automated, intelligent workflow. So you could say we took our quoting process from human-powered spreadsheet drama to AI-powered Tesla mode. It used to feel like running Windows 95, and now it's like having Jarvis from Iron Man do your pricing. I'm a big fan of Iron Man, so put that in there where I could. Our challenge here before automation, quoting is a multi-step relay race. We're downloading files, we're counting pages, we're plugging numbers into a system, we're applying pricing tiers, we're sending emails. It wasn't just slow, it was inconsistent. And human error could slip in anywhere, especially when we're working under tight deadlines. So our solution is we implemented Blackbird as an orchestration layer, essentially our traffic controller between the LanguageLine portal, our page counter app, and our business system. This means as soon as a client uploads content, Blackbird takes over. It orchestrates between our apps to analyze files, count pages, feed the data to our TMS, and automatically generate a quote very quickly and all without anyone touching a spreadsheet. The impact here was immediate. Quote turnaround times dropped from hours to minutes. Human error is essentially eliminated. Every quote uses consistent pricing logic. And project managers ultimately reclaim time for the things we want them to work on, like client strategy and relationship building. It's not just faster, it's smarter. And it's how we take AI orchestration into operational empathy. So we're freeing our people to do what only humans can do: connect, advise, innovate. Basically, we're letting the robots do the counting so the humans can do the strategic thinking. And these are just 2 case studies. We've sort of found out that once you start orchestrating, you begin to see those opportunities everywhere, whether it's content prep or QA routing, even review cycles. The point isn't really automation for automation's sake. It's creating a workflow that scales human expertise and doesn't replace it. And Dan, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks. Great case studies, and I think you hit the nail on the head too. Is when we're looking at AI operations and we're looking at automation, it's easy for us to be in the localization industry and say, "Oh, we need to focus in on translation," right? Or how to make that process faster or better. but it's the surrounding operational things as well that we need to be identifying use cases for AI and automation, those human elements that bog us down with translation still in the center of it. But, those ancillary processes. That's what I love about what I do is it's that blending of process and technology. It's understanding process mapping and human interactions and how we can further automate that. So it was great to see those different use cases. The one I'm going to talk about here, first off, I'm going to do a shameless plug. I have a podcast that's called Shift Left, and at some point, Erin will be joining me as a guest as well. But the podcast, the central theme of it is how organizations have transformed their content operations by identifying the ways to move localization and content operation steps further upstream. So instead of being reactive to new content, localization is now part of the overall content pipeline from the beginning. And I think this case study shows a great example of how shifting left can transform content operations in practice. And so this is a customer of ours, a global health and wellness company. They manage content in more than 150 different countries, and their localization workflow used to be entirely reactive. Content would get built first, then manually handed off for translation. Project managers had to update a project management system, a translation management system, a content management system, all separately, chasing updates and status reports across multiple systems. It was slow and fragmented and heavy on human coordination, and probably sounds familiar to a lot of you out there, right? Working in multiple systems. And so their goal was to move localization upstream, integrate it directly into the content creation process. And that's where Blackbird came in. So our customer implemented Blackbird as the orchestration layer across that entire tech stack I just mentioned, and localization would start immediately the moment the content was created or changed. That's what we call a trigger. It's an event, something that happens that triggers an event in Blackbird. They called it silent projects, which I just loved. They had this term called silent projects because since Blackbird was detecting the updates in real time and launching the translation workflows, it was silently happening while the project managers didn't even realize that these processes were happening in the back end. And that resulted in a true shifting left content model where localization was no longer a downstream task, but it was built into the creation process. And so overall, our customer was able to reduce their turnaround times by 95% time to market. It's eliminated manual project management on a lot of their core content types, over 60% PM time reduction on a lot of their projects. And most importantly, they gain predictability. They can now see localization as part of the design process and not as an afterthought, which I think a lot of us in this industry has felt. It's like, oh, now we got to do the translation after the fact. And now this is part of the beginning of the process. And I think this is how they're going to continue to build their localization pipelines to be faster, smarter, and have complete visibility. And it's a great success story. And I was happy that Blackbird was a part of it with them.
Very cool. We've all been in that situation where we wish we had as much time to translate as was spent on creating the content originally. So that really resonated with me, Dan. We're going to take a little break from presenting slides now and take some time to have a panel discussion. Each of us has a question to ask. We'll discuss it amongst ourselves, and we invite you as well to join us in the chat. And I'll get us started. I'm curious. We've all seen how AI can eliminate manual steps, but what surprised you the most once these automated workflows actually went live?
You want me to do it? Does Tom have a? Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan. Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. Yep. All you. I've been talking for a bit.
So, sorry, Erin, the question is, what surprised us the most whilst orchestrating? And okay, all right. I think first of all, I would say is what excited us the most was that as solutions people, this is kind of just a new, better, bigger toolbox that we could kind of go after anything and improve things. We've got so much stuff that we want to solve. What surprised us the most is probably the new areas that we could move into pretty easily. So with Blackbird, it's almost like the glue that brings different connections together, creates more possibilities. What generally happens in our industry is that we focus on the content, we focus on the translation, and traditionally it was translation memories, it was TMS or translation management systems, which were quite restricted. So we had that mindset a little bit, and I think people were always focusing on that mindset. What surprised me was how adaptable people were when they saw the new possibilities and the creative ideas that came out, which obviously continues. And it's great when you've got creative thinkers, you've got solutions people building and solving challenges. So for me, it was really, when you give people the opportunity to think outside the box, they really will think outside the box.
Yeah, and just to chime in to add to that too is empowering people to be able to solve problems that they couldn't solve previously without a developer. It's really great to see a user being able to do low code or no code solutioning without having to, bug a developer. It's like, hey, I need this feature, I need this. And it really does stretch people's problem-solving mentalities to say, hey, what else could I do? Maybe I'm at like 85% automation. Could I push this even further? Is there something I could do that will be even better? And then empowering that person to be able to do so.
Very cool. All right, Dan, Tom, you'll have a question?
Yeah, so I guess my question is how do we measure trust in AI driven localization? If you think about it, speed and cost are easy to quantify, right? But trust isn't. And I'm wondering if there's any concepts of what new metrics we might need to be tracking or measuring as part of this AI world that we're living in localization.
Do you want me to start first, Erin, with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
It's a great question, and it is certainly evolving. And I would say, whilst we're kind of looking at AI, exploring AI a lot more, and looking forward to what we can do, we always need to look at how it will really solve business challenges. We need to understand what's the ROI, what benefits is actually bringing in. We have an approach which is basically proof of concept, proof of concept, proof of concept, again, 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 and again. And out of following this process, we are seeing that we do need to identify and look at different metrics. So again, in the translation space, it was always focused on, okay, specific quality metrics. It was about what you're producing and shipping out. But now that it's a bit more wider and open, you can actually measure a lot more on the client success, right from the beginning of the content journey all the way through. So we're now getting exposed to metrics and things that were just kept away from us because we were seen as, okay, you just do the translation and send it back. But now we're kind of getting a lot more visibility and we're getting more involved in the whole content life cycle. We're starting to look at how we can really work with our customers and speak to them about what actually means success to them. What are the metrics? Is it user engagements in their content site, regardless of the language? Is it how many people are dropping off their website, or is it user feedback directly? So we are building a lot more metrics that are very much moving outside of the very much just translation quality scope, I would say.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's sort of layers of trust, Dan. I may trust one model to write an email to my customer all day long, solving a problem. I might not trust that same model to, make a medical diagnosis for someone. And really, when you're sort of testing at scale, you've got to have a lot of data. So you've got to validate that data, you've got to correct the data, you've got to enhance your model performance. I think there are maybe metrics in there that are inherent to whatever task you're trying to complete. And to sort of build on what Tom said, technology isn't an objective in and of itself, right? The question we're really trying to ask is, what is the goal? What is the business process end to end that we're trying to automate, that we're trying to build trust in, and then deciding what is our orchestration designed to sort of accomplish that goal. But I think we're sort of early in those days, and I am sort of excited to see. We all like measurements, we all like data, especially in the solution space. We want to know how well something's performing. I think that human feedback, human in the loop, aspect is going to be there for a very long time, and especially in those more critical areas.
Yeah, and I think again with this forward-looking approach, like the road ahead, and think about this, I think we are going to have to revisit or rethink how we're capturing data, the data points we are uh, presenting to our customers as well. I think if you think about trust, where does trust typically come from? Would be transparency, traceability, like audit trails. Like people want to be able to see like what's happening in a process or the measurements that determine that this process was effective. So I do think that it's going to create a new layer of data measurement on how we're using AI and automations in process, and demonstrating not only just like, hey, this was, translated, or here's the steps, here's the visibility into what actually happened. Maybe showing some in process quality metrics to our customers is going to become more um, prevalent, right? More standardized. Showing defects, if you will, but in letting them feel comfortable with the fact that AI is part of the process, but it's not entirely the process, and that they should be assured that even though AI was helping to generate or improve the process, that it's okay, right? So I think transparency, traceability, and explainability are going to be these key data points that we'll start measuring and reporting to customers moving ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. Really good question.
Tom, do you got a question for us?
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, am I up? I think my question is more around the people. We're talking a lot about AI and technology, but actually about the people, the talent. And I'm sure that people on this webinar are thinking, okay, what are we saying? Are we saying that professional translators are getting replaced by AI? Are we saying that about interpreters? What does that mean for the people, the talent? And that's both really the linguists, but it's also the project managers. Erin, you talked about some of the use cases there about, okay, we're automating a lot of those steps. What does that mean for the project managers? And what are we doing to support these people in this transition, let's say, this journey that AI is taking us down?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, like any transformation or anything that's innovative, there's absolutely going to be change. You think about the manufacturing in the industrial age, and then just the people had to change skills. Things were more automated, but they still had to learn new skills, and jobs evolved. And I think we're in that same time frame with AI and automation. So if you're thinking about what does it mean for the linguistic talent? I think there's an evolution of where it's part linguist, part technologist now, right? I think the best people in 2026 will be able to speak to both language and logic, problem solving, be able to refine and debug workflows and not just focusing on linguistic elements. So I think there's going to be this hybrid role for linguistic talent. Also being able to contribute to training and improving machine data, helping with the actual process of making sure that the data that they're getting as an output is actually really, really good by giving feedback to that. So that human in the loop, that feedback loop is going to be really important. And then I think one thing that's just not going to go away that AI just can't replace is the fact that people do want to interact with humans, right? There's still this human element. There's this empathy. There's storytelling. People still want to be connected with a human when they call customer service because uh, that it's going to help them resolve their problems probably better, or at least they feel like they're being heard. So I think the interpretive layer is where human expertise is remains irreplaceable. I just don't think that is going to be going away. So really focusing in on your people skills and focusing in on human interaction skills, that's definitely going to be a soft skill that everyone is going to have to kind of upskill on to be able to thrive in this world where a lot of their other elements are being automated with AI. So that's kind of my mindset when it comes to the human aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said. I mean, AI was created by humans for humans. There's still human behind it prompting. It's not a set it and forget it with these big models. It's a constant input from the human to modify, to improve, to address biases, to address, data that maybe wasn't ideal. I like to think of it sort of as having AI as a coworker, and you're teaching them your job, you're making them better. It will take time, and yeah, they can do a lot of things for you. We can really take care of those mundane tasks that you perform over and over again. We hit on that with talking about quoting. What it does in my mind is it takes away those things that we don't really want to do. All those things that, are simple. And it gives us the opportunity to do more things. In my perfect world, I could spend half or more of my day learning. I'd be able to watch videos and go to conferences and interact with people and continue to talk about what's coming next and build new systems. And as Tom said, we have more tools than we've ever had before. I want to go in there and test and figure out what works and what doesn't and connect systems that have never been connected before. But if I'm sitting at my desk passing files to a linguist or QAing a document on my screen, I don't have time to do those things. So for me, it isn't taking away, but it's adding. It's giving us more with less, essentially. And you can teach a model to translate the words, I'm sorry, but really a human only knows when you mean it. And I don't know that machines are really ever going to get there. So to me, the human element, regardless of what level we're going to have it at an AI, is always going to be irreplaceable. All right. Thank you for those. Evelyn, do we have anything in the chat that we should add?
Just one comment, as we were talking about, the element of humans and where we fit in. I think Monica mentioned that, some people are just not ready. They're not technology adept and they're not using AI responsibly, to really like steer away from being able to use AI within their embedded environment. So that was one of the comments that I wanted to highlight, from one of our attendees.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, technology, even as we've introduced it in different ways over the decades, is never really equitable. Everyone doesn't have access to the same technology, to the same amount of technology, to the availability. It's something I think as humans we need to work on. But the adoption rate and the types of AI that someone is using sometimes can be limited. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think with anything too, it's just iterative baby steps, right? I mean, a child doesn't come into this world and start running marathons, right? You have to take your first step, and being willing to do that, even if it's just finding one small element of your tasks or operational, components that you can add AI to, and testing that out. Even when we're building at Blackbird, we always say it's like iterative, right? You don't go sit down and like build an elaborate workflow in Bird from day one. It's like, let's run a task, see how it performs. Let's add to it, see how that performs. It's very iterative, and thinking, just tapping into not just the technology access, but the mindsets of people. Some people don't want to adapt or learn new things. There is a fear component of it. Is a fear of losing control over decisions or visibility, job security. Will this replace me? So we have to acknowledge those fears and be comfortable with those fears and talk about it and keep the human element as part of the AI conversation, for sure. But then us that are a little bit more technology savvy, we should take the extra step to help people feel more comfortable with learning it, and giving them simple things like, hey, just try this with AI, like little assignments to help them out as well. So I think we're all in this together, right? I think it's a crazy journey. And I think we all need to help each other from top down, to be able to, survive this future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Sorry for interrupting you, Erin. And another note, we've had quite a few questions, so I thought I would answer this online as well. When we're talking about language access, we're not just talking about translation, right? Like reading and having access to data is and being able to be understood is one portion of it, but LanguageLine and Blackbird, we are always trying to work in a more holistic approach, right? It's language and communication comes in all sorts of different ways, and one of the ways that we do that is through interpretation. So we've had quite a few questions asking, well, what is LanguageLine doing when it comes to AI interpretation? So I'm going to ask everybody to go on our website. Shameless plug, this is not a marketing webinar, but I want to ask everybody to go on our website, check our AI solutions. We do have LanguageLine Automated Interpreter as a pilot right now, but we're very much aware that we want our clients to use AI responsibly, especially when it comes to interpretation, right? Like translation, Erin said, Dan mentioned, Tom said, we have humans in the loop. We're not just deviating away from the importance of humans when it comes to AI, and LanguageLine has the same approach when it comes to interpretation. So we're creating a workflow where low risk content can go through AI, and then the second it becomes a little bit more complex, we will automatically connect you to a human. So encourage everybody to go there, because I know there's going to be more questions about how LanguageLine is managing AI and interpretation, but don't want to deviate the conversation too much.
Perfect. All right. So looking ahead, I think 2026 is probably going to be our year of equilibrium. So creating balance between innovation and governance, speed and safety, automation and artistry. We'll see more multi-module AI and AI orchestration, tools that see and hear, maybe even feel context, and more people that know how to guide these tools. As Dan mentioned, our challenge is to prepare people to leverage AI, to see AI as a coworker, not a competitor. If you take one thing away, let it be that the future of localization isn't human versus machine, it's human and machine. And together we can accomplish more. So I'm curious, Dan and Tom, your thoughts on 2026?
Yeah, a couple of points. One is I think that much like Blackbird has been put in place to connect systems, I think we're going to see a fragmentation of AI agents coming up, where you're still going to have an AI agent in this system and an AI agent in this system, and you're going to have more fragmentation. And I think you're still going to need a glue that communicates between all these different AI agents. It's someone made the joke the other day, I'll have my agent call your agent. That's basically what we're going to be dealing with all these AI agents that are coming up. So same thing. It's great that all these different platforms are introducing their AI agents. But what happens when you need those agents to communicate with each other? So it's going to be a little bit of a challenging fragmentation there. I also think that the way that content operations has evolved this year and will continue to evolve is going to redefine how we do a lot of our processes coming into next year, especially if you look at traditional TMS platforms. I think they're kind of hitting a wall with, they're originally built for files. Not necessarily streams of AI generated dynamic content. And more content is being created. More content is being created at the source now. You're seeing not just people translating content, but generating content earlier in the process in language. And then what do you do with it? So you're going to need to think of like systems that are going to be able to corral all of that. So I think in 2026, this gap is going to widen, and either the TMSs out there are going to have to evolve. API first orchestration layers, or they're going to risk becoming a legacy component in this very modern tech stack. And that's where Blackbird introduced Blacklake as that layer to help deal with modern content operations as it evolves with more AI generated content and more content being created. So I do think that we're going to see a shift of not just the technology needed in 2026 to handle content operations, but the mindset of it's great that translation now is being talked about at the C level in large organizations, but the impact of that is now translation is being talked about at the C level in organizations. It's going to change our processes, and that's going to see something that's going to happen in 2026 for sure.
Yeah, I would just add to that as well. If we kind of now bring in the linguist element of that, you're absolutely right, Dan. I totally agree around the, the translation management systems. They need to reinvent themselves. It's no longer just about translation projects, large projects now. There's a lot more tasks and there's different types of tasks. So I'm thinking now with the linguists and some of the work we've been doing this year to almost prepare our linguists for the journey ahead. This is not you're just going to be working on big translation projects in a TMS. There's so many different types of tasks now, right through the content lifecycle. That might be content moderation, it might be thumbs up, thumbs down, scoring, it might be all sorts of different creative tasks that are going to help with AI training and machine learning. There's a lot of value still for the human linguists, of course. And I think this is really about how we help them evolve as well. So the technology has to evolve. Of course it does. It has to catch up. But we're going to have to work with the people to work with this technology as well. So I'm seeing definitely that we're moving from projects to varied tasks. And how do we get people excited about tasks? And also how do they make a living off this as well? It is a big change there. And then my second point, I would say it really relates to the first point there, and we are seeing this. We have been seeing this through the year, but making sure that we're talking about purposeful AI. So we're talking about deploying AI, we're deploying solutions and orchestration when it really matters, when it's solving business challenges. I talked about proof of concepts. We run them every day. Many, many, many proof of concepts. A lot of those are failing, to be quite honest. But I think that's the point of a proof of concept where we're trying things where we're falling short. We'll pick them up again and maybe they succeed, but we're continuously evaluating what can we improve, how can we do things differently, and it always has to come down to what is it solving, what are the benefits. Remove the hype. Let's stop talking about all of the hype that AI is going to solve everything. It's absolutely not. But if you work in the right way, if you're very focused on the specific tasks and what you want to achieve, there's a lot more that we can be doing. And I know at LanguageLine and in partnership with you guys at Blackbird, that's really what it all starts. So when we're designing our birds, right from the beginning, we're thinking, what is this really going to solve? How is it going to help our clients? How is it going to help our users?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the the big thing that we all have to just keep banging the drum on is humans really, really matter in this future world with AI. I don't think AI removes the human element. In fact, I think it amplifies it. So I don't think that the future is human versus machine. It's humans building better systems together leveraging AI. So I think those last 2 points we kind of talked about it earlier, the redefinition of linguistic roles and the human and technology balance, um, going to be a really, really critical for 2026 for us to work together on and make sure that we're embracing that. Yeah, AI will reduce some of the manual tasks. Erin, you said it should make my life easier, but we should then, as a result, be more creative and be more problem solving as a result of it. So everyone that's out there that you know sees a problem that previously couldn't be solved, there's a good chance that now it can be, right? With the technology that's available.
Perfect. And we've all, in our conversation here, hit at the human element, regardless of what the future holds. Here at LanguageLine, we've always believed that technology should amplify humanity, not replace it. I'd say the irony is that the more advanced that AI becomes, the more valuable things like empathy and creativity, Dan, you mentioned, culture of fluency becomes. So I think 2026 success probably won't be measured in ROI traditionally, but trust. And again, you mentioned that inclusion, impact. It's an augmentation, right? How can we be more creative? How can we solve problems we haven't solved before? How can we connect systems that never connected before? How can we redefine and improve systems maybe that are outdated now with the tools, technology, and the humans that we've freed up from these sort of task-based things that AI are taking for us. So really exciting. I think we've saved a little bit of time for Q&A.
We do. We have one more poll, and then as the poll is going on, as we're trying to get some answers, then we will talk a little bit about the questions. So we do have quite a few questions coming through, and I just want to be mindful that most likely we're not going to be able to answer all of them. But as we're talking about humans in the loop, the importance of it, looking at 2026, if we imagine 2026 as a year of balance between innovation and technology and governance, what will success look like moving forward? Are we measuring ROI? Are we just talking about inclusion? Are we talking about trust? What will success look like? What should people and companies look like moving forward?
Yeah, I think this plays into the question that Dan was asking, but really it's redefining what are the success metrics. Is it the output? So are we looking at cultural accuracy? Is it tone alignment? Did we reduce the bias? Do we have synergy in our AI systems? We talk a little bit about transparency. Do you know when AI is being used? Do you know what it's being used to accomplish? What type of governance do we put in there? I'm not 100% sure yet. I think there's a lot of ideas on how you measure that. But I do think it plays into the iteration that Dan and Tom both hit on, that we're testing, that we're doing POCs, that we're looking at what is the outcome. Okay, how can I improve it? That'd be my answer. Dan and Tom, anything to add?
No, I think I'm pretty aligned too. And for me, I do think the question of how the sausage is being made is going to come up a little bit more, right? I do think that there's this awareness. Now, the funny thing is, I mean, our industry, like the localization industry, has been using AI for a long time. This isn't new, and so it's just ironic that the questions I'm seeing now, buyers, the end clients asking about the uses of AI, it's kind of like, well, I mean, neural machine translation has been used for over a decade now, right? So, and even before that, the more rudimentary or the more basic machine translation has been used, since the 1950s. So it's not like this is new to us, but I think what's new is it's almost like a pop culture phenomenon at this point. Like AI is like it resonated with, my kids use AI, right? So, it's like it's out there. And I think people have a lot of questions about trust. So I do think that that transparency and a little bit of showing, not just telling, like, hey, this is where we used AI in our process to do X, Y, and Z. And maybe here's some data to say here's what it actually resulted in. I think that's going to be helping people be more comfortable with using AI in their processes.
I love that all the questions that are coming through are being answered already. So I'm just like clicking over here. Dismissed. Sorry, Tom, you were gonna add to Dan too.
No, it was only very quickly. I was actually just going to make the point that I think, organizations like ours, LanguageLine, Blackbird, we should also be looking at our value proposition around, not just about business metrics. Of course, we're using technology and AI around, okay, we want to make it quicker, faster, cheaper, and, get the quality right. But you've got to use it responsibly. We've had a lot of questions coming around the interpreting side as well. Evelyn, you answered that, but it's got to be responsible. You've got to get the right guardrails in there. We've talked a lot about the human, the people as well. That all needs to come together as well. So I think I would just add that layer of kind of responsibility around what we're doing, that transparency for me is absolutely critical.
Thank you. So question, in a world where traditional localization has declined, how do we define its strategic value moving forward? Is it now continue to be speed? Is it scale? Is it influence? How are we defining the value right now?
Think it's all three, but the real differentiator now is influence, right? I mean, because speed and scale are kind of like a baseline, but influence is how localization shapes product, it shapes messaging, it shapes customer experience. So I think that's the biggest value to me would be the influence because I don't know, I feel like speed and scale has always been a given at this point, but now with what we can do with technology, we can produce more content in more languages to resonate with more people around the world. But let's make sure that the messaging, the influence around that language is clear. And when we talk about language access and accessibility, it's not just about giving people translations, but it's translations that are going to matter to them and resonate with them. So I think influence is probably where I would go with that.
Yeah, fully agree. And honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. It really is about the influence, but I agree. You can't lose speed and scale, right? They are given, but they still have value and they matter to our clients. But it's really sort of this global touch point where it needs to feel on brand and culturally resonant and reach the audiences with the intention that it was meant to. So that influence piece, which influencer, that's sort of a coined term. It isn't always perceived in the best light, but I do think it's very important, and the way that language access plays into this is really important.
So
And
we're
just very,
almost,
oh, sorry,
go
go on.
ahead, go
No,
ahead, Tom.
I'll be very quick. And I was going to say it comes back to the trust as well for me. I totally agree with what Dan and Erin are saying there, but it comes back to the trust, the value of, okay, look, content is getting produced at ridiculous rates now. It's being translated, localized through AI, but it's also being created through AI and in various forms. I think, our responsibility, our value proposition is how do we bring that trust to make sure that the right messaging, the intent, the emotional feeling is getting across in what we're delivering.
One last question before we close the session today. What role will API-based partnerships play in defining the next generation of intelligent infrastructure for global communication? And that's a complex one for the last one, right?
I'll be quick. I think it's going to be the backbone of the operations. I think API is going to turn localization from standalone workflow into just part of the entire enterprise nervous system. So I think what iPaaS means to me is it's not just defined by connectivity, but really it's the critical infrastructure, the backbone of everything there.
Yeah.
So for our last poll, we had the question, if you had to describe your team's AI readiness, which statement fits best? We had a tie in there between we're cautiously experimenting with guardrails and we're waiting for clear regulations, which wraps up everything that's being said in this webinar today. I want to be mindful of everyone's timing. I do know that we had a lot more questions coming through that we did not get a chance to answer, but this is going to be an opportunity for us to have a follow-up webinar with the same team and be able to share a little bit more of what is progressing in 2026 in comparison to what was shared today. Thank you, Dan, Erin, Tom, and Alita for your presentation today. And an email is going to be sent out with the link to the recording to all attendees within the next few days. On behalf of LanguageLine Solutions and Blackbird.io, would like to thank you for taking the time to join our session today. Enjoy the rest of your day.